Hey everyone, it's Jennifer from GetSetUp. Today I'm going to be leading you through making a delicious beef chili. Actually, it's my super secret beef chili, and that's because I'm going to share with you a secret tip, a secret hack for browning the beef better. So we are going to learn a little special secret to help your beef brown better and your chili taste better. And let's get going. So I've got 2 pounds of ground beef in my bowl, and I started this ahead of time because it needs to sit for 20 minutes. But the secret hack to getting your ground beef to brown better is to use a little baking soda water solution in the ground beef. This is actually a proven fact. It's been tested. I learned about it in Cooks Illustrated, and I've tried it a number of times, and it does work. And the deal is that the baking soda binds to the ground beef, and it prevents the beef from letting out as much liquid when you're browning it in the pan. And so that way the proteins are holding on to more of the juices, and you get a better brown on the outside. So what happens to some people is that they'll put the beef in there. It basically ends up steaming in its own liquid, and you really don't get a brown beef. You kind of just get steamed beef crumbles. And that can also happen if you crowd your pan with too much beef. It can steam in its own juices. But adding the baking soda can really help. So it's about, for 2 pounds of meat, you want to use about 3/4 a teaspoon of baking soda in a in about a tablespoon or 2 of water, just enough to work it through the meat without making it watery, of course. Get my oven going, about 400 degrees or medium high. And depending on what kind of beef you're choosing, if you have a really lean grind of beef, you might want to add a little bit of olive oil. I have a 93.7 grind, which means it's 93% fat, 93% lean, 7% fat. So we're just gonna, I think I forgot to mention, when you do the baking soda mixture, it sits for about 20 minutes in the fridge after you mix it together. So we will get this in. I love that meat sizzle sound. That is happiness to my ears, and in about 5 minutes it's going to be happiness to my nose. Okay. So we're just going to keep working the beef. Constantly smashing it up with my spatula to make nice little beef crumbles. I remember when I first got married to my husband, he can make one dish. He can make spaghetti with ground beef, and he makes his spaghetti with ground beef. He really gets in there and grinds up the beef, and it's like, I'm like, it looks like sand, you know. So he makes the crumbles very fine, and I like them bigger and juicier and meatier. So we had to work those differences out, and now we've been married for well over 30 years. So I'm gonna let this sit for a minute while I finish up my onion. We're gonna throw an onion into the chili. A great thing about chili is that it's not just meat. We have vegetables in there. An onion is a great vegetable. Has a lot of gut benefits. And I am going to use about 1 medium chopped onion. This is only half a chopped onion, but this guy was a big old sucker. So let me stir the meat around for just a minute more. Okay. Like I said, I used a 93.7 grind on this beef. That means 93% lean, 7% fat. It can be a little overwhelming when you head into the grocery store because they have all the chubs of meat up there, and you're like 90-10, 93-7, 96-4, 80-20, chuck, sirloin, what do I get? I personally like a 93-7 or 90-10. That is, both of those are still considered lean by the American Heart Association, and that is a great choice for like making dishes like this, chili, spaghetti, those sorts of things where you don't want a lot of fat floating on top, and then you know can give it like a super greasy, heavy feel. However, I will say that when making a burger, an 80-20 is a pretty tasty. An 80-20 chuck is a pretty tasty choice. It just is a little fattier, leaves a little more of the flavor in. I've seen grinds that go to buy at the market like 70-30 too, and that's a little too much fat to deal with. If you're cooking your meat and you're noticing a little more fat in the pan than you want, first of all, if you're using a lean grind, in here you can see liquid, okay? Some of that is fat, a lot of it is just water that the meat is releasing. And let's back up, let's backtrack to the baking soda little hack I just gave you. The baking soda is trying to tell the proteins in the meat to hold on to more of the water, so it's not releasing as much. So it's going to be, in the end, be a juicier little bite of meat for you. And it's going to increase the Maillard effect. Also, it's going to give you some better browning. So that is like the way the amino acids and proteins and sugars work together in the meat, and then you go from Maillard reaction, you go to caramelizing, which is the next step, and then you eventually go to burning. We wouldn't want that. All right, looks like we just have another minute on the meat, and I can tell that baking soda trick is keeping a lot of the juices in the meat. That is great. Okay. Now, also what you can do if you want to get rid of some of the water and fat in your ground beef is you can put it in a colander and rinse it, and that'll take away some of the fat. I've done that before, especially if I'm using a fattier grind. This one though has a little bit of water buildup. I'm just gonna sop it up with a paper towel here because I'm about to do some onions, and that's gonna bring me a little more water, and I don't want a super watery chili. I want a super meaty chili. So this is what I do at home. I just kind of drain that, tilt it to the side, get the juices I can out. A lot of it's water. It's not all fat. Actually, most of it's water. Okay, now I'm going to put in my onion my medium onion that I have chopped up. Let's get our garlic in there too. Need to have some garlic. I'm just going to saute these until softened. Now, chili, I was curious where it came from. So chili is short for chili con carne, which means chilies with meat. And it really started, well, there's some food history, like squabbles over it, but for the most part, people say that chili came from around about the beginning of the 1900s from San Antonio, Texas. Yeehaw! I'm from Texas. I'm from Austin, which is about an hour away from San Antonio. Anyway, there was a group of women that were known as the Chili Queens, and they were some older, great cooking Hispanic cooks, because Texas is close to Mexico, bringing those flavors and cultural experiences over with them to San Antonio, and they were making some of their, home dishes, and they would make it at home, the chili, and then bring it up to the square and sell it. They had little chili carts that they would push around and sell chili. So this is how chili became a popular food. And then chili parlors started getting popularized around the country. And then that's when you saw all the different regional variations pop up, like, you know, everyone has their take on chili. I mean, like, I'm from Texas, and we'll talk about that in a minute, as I mentioned, but like chili over noodles, there's all sorts of chili. And well, I mean, now today there's all varieties of chili, plant-based chilies. Beef chili is still my favorite. But here's the big hot topic. Beans in the chili or not. So think about that one for a minute, because we're gonna be making that decision here very soon. So my onions are softening. I can smell the garlic, it's fragrant, and I'm now gonna add my spices and let them bloom in the pot. I like to add them with the meat when there's not a lot of liquid, because that helps them bloom. If you pour all your liquid ingredients in and then the spices, they don't really have the same effect with the meat. So we have a couple tablespoons of chili powder. I have paprika, cumin, oregano. Oh, what is this one? Oh, I know what that is. That's for the last step. Hang on. Sorry. Didn't have my glasses on. That was like a mystery spice to me. So you can see I'm adding that chili color to the meat. I can instantly smell the spices. So I just need to cook this around, get those spices activated. Chefs like to call that blooming the spice. And then we will move on to our next step. Oh my gosh, this is gonna be so good. This would be so great for tailgating, football party. We'll talk about all that in a minute. So I'm gonna use my next ingredients. I'm gonna put the liquid ingredients in. I'm going to put in, these are all 15 and a half ounce cans, more or less. I have some beef broth, tomato sauce, fire roasted tomatoes. You could use regular petite diced tomatoes, but I love the option of having the fire roasted as an extra smoky element to the chili. And now, should I do it? Should I not do it? Add pinto beans to my chili? Are you on team beans or team no beans when it comes to chili? If you have a super strong feeling about it, you can leave a comment in the chat. I would love to see that, but I'm gonna add the beans. I figure it's just variety and protein, and the liquid that the beans are in really helps to thicken the chili up too, I think. I like my beans. I like beans in my chili. So there, I said it. I'm from Texas, and I like beans in my chili. Don't shoot me. Okay. So we have that simmering around. I'm actually gonna turn the heat up a little bit to get it going faster. And then our next item of interest is tortilla chips. Oh yes, you've probably sprinkled tortilla chips on top of your chili as like a little garnish, and we might just do that at the end too, but I'm gonna crush up the tortilla chips and put them inside the chili as a way to help add a little extra flavor like masa or something, and then also as a way, this is a good way to absorb any extra liquid that you might have in the chili, like so you don't have any watery chili. So if you're making chili fast, adding about a third a cup of crushed tortilla chips can help you get rid of that watery, I should have brought a Ziploc bag and a rolling pin to crush those in officially, but we are just gonna go low tech. We're all friends here, so I'm just gonna squeeze them in like that. Actually, that was pretty satisfying. up. And I also have, I think it's a tablespoon or 2 tablespoons of brown sugar. 1 tablespoon, that looks like. Stir that in, and then this is gonna simmer. You have a couple choices. You can simmer it on the stove top for about 20 minutes, or put it in the oven. If you wanna make it ahead and keep it warm, if you have an oven-proof pot, a Dutch oven, something that can stay in the oven like an enamel cast iron, then you can just keep it in the oven and keep it warm until your company comes. And when it gets to the right consistency, when you put the lid on, it should stay. If you keep simmering it on the stove top open, it's going to cook down. So this does need to cook for about 20 minutes though, so we'll let it simmer. Okay, so let's see, what else can I tell you about chili? If you have any questions, please drop them in the chat. I would love to hear what you have to say, and I encourage the participation. One of my favorite times to make chili is we make it a lot on Christmas Eve. We kind of go back and forth from chili on Christmas Eve to tamales. So, and then also, of course, football games. Anytime it gets below 70 degrees in Texas, I'm like, I need some chili, which is actually going to be tonight. We've been like 80 degrees all week, and now it's going to be 39. So happy to be making this pot of chili. And actually, chili, what a great way to get protein in your day. We all need to eat more protein, especially as active agers. So getting 20 to 30 grams of protein in per meal is really ideal. And this is definitely going to help you meet your goals. Let that simmer a little more. Then I have to tell you something interesting that happened to me this year. This isn't my only chili. I have a lot of recipes. I have one, I love to eat everything. I especially love beef. I think beef is great. Zinc, iron, and protein in your diet. And ground beef is easy to cook with. I have another chili recipe that I'll share with y'all soon. It's part plant, part beef, and it's mushroom quinoa beef chili. And I wasn't sure it was going to fly at my house. I served it to my husband without really telling him what it was, because I thought that would kind of, he'd be like, that's not real chili. He's like, this is so good. So the idea is that the mushrooms are chopped up super fine, the quinoa kind of still has that same ground beef texture, and then the beef. So not only are you stretching your food dollar because you're not using as much meat, you're also getting the benefit of having other proteins in your diet, more vegetables. It's super good. In fact, it's actually so good that it was recently published in a cookbook called Amazing. Listen, I want to make sure I get the title and credits completely right. Yeah, Seriously Good Chili. This came out in September. 177 best chili recipes in the world by Brian Baumgartner. And the funny thing about that is, do you know who Brian Baumgartner was? I was so tickled and flattered my recipe ended up in his book. He is Kevin from The Office. And do you remember that one episode where he dropped the pot of chili on the floor? That was so classic. So anyway, I will share that chili recipe next, I promise. But today we're making this beef, delicious chili. It's gonna warm you up from the inside, nourish you. If this pot looks way too huge for you and your family, your partner or whomever, it's great as leftovers. You could eat off this 5 days probably. Keep it in my fridge. Leftovers stay for about 5 days in the fridge, and honestly, I live for soup season because I think soup tastes better the next day even. Everything just comes together and marries more in the pot. And I also appreciate the fact that my dinner is already made and it's kind of like a tasty leftover. So you could also freeze it into your individual portions, and you can also, sorry, I'm watching for it to boil. You could freeze it, and you can also reduce the recipe in half. You can cut the recipe in half. When you cut the recipe in half, go ahead and use a smaller size pot too, because you don't want a huge pot and a little bit of chili in there. my brain was jumping ahead. That leads me to say, questions I get, can I make it with something else? You could try ground chicken, you could try ground turkey and see how that goes. I am partial to the ground beef, but you have options. Okay, so let's see how this goes. Now I'm gonna turn this off. Ladle some up, I bet it's delicious. Wow, what are y'all's favorite chili toppings? I'm gonna do a few more chips. And then a red onion, a little green onion, and of course cheese. I have to have cheese on, I have to melt cheese on top of almost every soup. I don't know why, but it's especially good on chili. Let me do a little of that. Oops. Anyway, how good is that? How delicious is that? For lunch, for dinner, you could put it in a big thermos and take it out to the game. It would be very, very comforting. This is like comfort food at its best. So there you go, y'all. If y'all have about 30 minutes, you can make an amazing chili with ground beef and use that secret trick I taught you with the baking soda, and you will be loving this all cold weather season.